But first, some clarity for post-secondary students, and I've heard from many of you struggling during this period of lockdown. They're learning today that they can begin applying for emergency benefits this Friday, just 2 days from now. Carla Qualtrough is the Minister of Employment and Workforce Development. She joins us from Vancouver. Hi, Minister Qualtrough. Good to see you again.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being back. I know student applications will open up on Friday, and I do have a bunch of questions for you on behalf of students, but I also want to ask you about the process. And I'm sure you've heard the opposition press the Prime Minister this week about the emergency benefit and fraudulent cases. The National Post has reported there's a memo from your department telling bureaucrats processing claims to pay out the CERB even if there are red flags with the applicant. Is that true?
Well, listen, I mean, at the end of the day, Vasi, we had to do a bit of a triage. And quite frankly, Service Canada and CRA are following up on everything that they deem a priority. Doesn't mean at the end of the day that everything won't be followed up on. They're just prioritizing things that are more red flag than other things. We know we put a lot of our integrity measures at the end of this process. CRA and Service Canada have all the data analytics and intelligence. They are ongoing investigations where there are red flags. I have every confidence that this is simply a matter of triaging and prioritizing. When you have 8 million applicants, you have to figure out what to do first.
I just want to be clear, though, because you just said, for example, that you have every confidence there are investigations when there are red flags. Yep. Are there investigations taking place right now if there are red flags? Because what the report said was the opposite, that in fact those investigations will be pushed to after.
Well, no. There's definitely ongoing investigations. We just can't have the same level of rigor at the beginning as we have had historically. So Service Canada was flagging to employees that we can't do what we used to do at the front end because that's not how this benefit works, but we'll do it at the back end, which doesn't mean at the same time we're not also looking in and investigating and making sure that, you know, if say a SIN number comes in and that's not a Canadian SIN number, we're investigating that. Like there's things that are happening in real time. Absolutely. It's just not as robust as it could be because the safeguards aren't what they were at the front end before.
I understand that. Is there a memo, though, in which your department says to bureaucrats working on this, do not stop pay?
Well, I mean, there was guidance given to bureaucrats that we're going to be more robust at the end, yes. So I don't know, I don't want to get caught up in language, but guidance was definitely given in that regard, yes, to triage as in this way.
Why don't you want to get caught up in language? I'm not being flippant. I'm just asking because I've listened to the Prime Minister be asked this question directly many times and not give a specific answer. So that's why I'm asking you.
In bureaucratic lingo, a memo is a certain thing and a guidance is a different thing. And so this was done in the form of guidance. But there was a piece of paper that says this is how you should triage claims for sure. I just don't want to call it a memo and then someone down the road saying to me, well, it wasn't technically a memo. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
I apologize.
No, I appreciate you clarifying. The Post also reported that there were 200,000 applications that had already been red flagged as possibly fraudulent because of either dubious claims of past employment or other factors. Is that true?
Well, I've looked into that. That was the first time I heard it as well. And there are not 200,000 claims red flagged to my knowledge, and that's coming from the top. So you can take that to the bank. Of course, every day different numbers come my way, and I can't give you a definitive answer on every single day, but there are not currently 200,000 red flagged claims that are being paid out that shouldn't be.
Is there an assessment? Is the department assessing that? Is there any kind of number you can provide to help us quantify, sort of posit against that number that was
I understand what you're asking. Not at this time, but I'm still looking into it because, to be honest, that was the first time I heard such a large number, and it's just not the case. I mean, we know that there's going to be a lot of work at the back end of this, and we're okay with that. That was part of the deal in getting Canadians money out quickly. But that's not the number that is remotely near what I have.
Did your government, and this is a question that I've heard asked from people from the opposition primarily, but I'm wondering just because I remember reading a tweet from Adam Vaughan back in the beginreading of April in which, you know, there were a lot of concerns at the time that this was actually too stringent, right? And what if I don't qualify for reason A, B, or C? And he had said, don't overreact and impose strict literal interpretations to what is a relatively easy attestation to make. You know, should people be concerned, or is there any merit to the accusation the opposition is making that your government almost encouraged some of this fraudulent behavior?
No, I mean, I think our government trusts Canadians and expects people to be honest, and we try and make the attestation as plain language and straightforward as it possibly can. People will know. When I ask you, are you a student? Yes or no. If you wonder if your institution qualifies, there's a list. If you wonder if your degree or diploma qualifies, there's a list. I mean, the types of questions I think that might require some judgment, there's help there. And I have no worry that people are going to find this overly complicated.
Should Mr. Vaughan have said something like that, though? Don't overreact and impose strict literal interpretation.
Well, I think, perhaps he was being a bit flippant, and, I'll let him speak for himself. But, I mean, the fact is, if people should get this benefit, like the CERB, and we realize they were ineligible, we will get the money back from them, right? And there's not going to be penalties, and we're not going to punish people if they did it in good faith. But at the end of the day, there's rigor at the end of the process, and we will figure that all out.
What about the students? I do want to get to those questions as well. Just to be clear, will the process be the same in that, if there are cases where they shouldn't have got the money, they'll have to pay it back at the end of this? There won't be penalties, but they'll have to pay it back. Is that how it will work this time?
Yeah, and that's how we drafted the legislation. Again, just like the CERB, there's no penalties, so you won't be fined. It'll be interest-free. There's no interest that will accrue in collecting that money from you. We will follow up with you. People don't have to worry. Just like with the CERB, we're trying to make this as painless as possible because people are already stressed.
Are the instructions to bureaucrats the same, the guidance to bureaucrats the same, though, when it comes to the possibility of fraudulent claims? Basically, don't stop paying.
I understand. Yeah, no, I think it's too premature to say that. It really depends on volume, right? We're not going to have 8 million cases this time, 8 million, we've had over 11 million applications for the CERB with 8 million different people. We expect around 1 million students to apply for this, so we may be able to keep up with flags a little differently. But again, I can't tell you until I see how things start working on Friday.
And on Friday, speaking of Friday, that is when, and we'll be reiterating this throughout the show tonight, students can begin to apply for this. Yeah. How quickly, will it be like the CRB? Can they expect money in their accounts if they do have that CRA account set up in a couple of days?
Absolutely. So I'd say 3 business days, again, like the CERB, but it could be sooner like it was for many people. The difference with students is we really need them to get a CRA account. They can start getting that today or yesterday because a lot of them haven't yet filed taxes. So they might not have a direct deposit with the Government of Canada. So the more people can do now, the better they'll be able to get their benefit right away as of Friday.
And before I let you go, Minister, because I do have you with us right now, you're also the Minister for Disability Inclusion. And I wanted to ask you about something in particular I've received a number of questions on from Canadians living with disabilities. And especially since yesterday's announcement for seniors, they point out to me that they are also living on a lower fixed income. And they're wondering if something like the one-time payment that was announced yesterday for seniors is in the cards for them. What would you say?
Well, I'd say that's a real legitimate question. And if you add the wording of the unanimous consent motion that passed for the House, where we're going to look at seniors and people with disabilities, it's no wonder they're asking. And what I can tell them, and I'll tell all Canadians, that we haven't forgotten about you. We're working on it. And there'll be something to come soon. So
that hasn't been ruled out. And can you give them an idea?
Oh, good Lord, no.
And can you give them an idea of what soon means?
Soon, within the next week or so. We've got National Access Awareness Week coming up the week after next. So I would look for something exciting that week.
Okay, I'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Minister Qualtrough. Appreciate your time as always.
My pleasure. Take care.